So we know that the first leader of the Jewish nation, when it's a nation, is Moshe Rabbeinu, is Moses. He also was the one who brought the Torah down to the world. Hashem, God gave him the Torah that he brought and taught us. And to this day, it's referred to as the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu, the Torah of Moses. What was it about Moshe that made him the leader of the Jews, that made him so qualified, and also made him qualified to bring the Torah to the world? Is it one and the same, or did he have two different sets of qualities, two different skill sets? And what were those skill sets? So let's analyze the life of Moshe. The Medrash teaches us that when Moshe was born, Nesmala Habayis Ora, the room became filled with light. In other words, there was this great spiritual light that came to the world with Moshe being born. He was immediately, as soon as he was a few months old, he was put in a basket and left on the Nile. The daughter of Pharaoh finds him, and she wants to take him home and care for him. And she has to find a wet nurse to nurse him. And he would only nurse from a Jewish woman, from his own mother. We see great spiritual sensitivity, great holiness here. That's not the greatness of Moshe. The fact that the light shined in the room when he was born, the fact that he intuitively only wanted to nurse from somebody Jewish, or somebody who had eaten kosher food, that's not his greatness. That's something from beyond him. The greatness of Moshe begins, as the Torah tells us, Vayigdal Moshe. Moshe grew up, Vayetze Alechav, and he went to his brethren. The Medrash tells us he was 20 years old when he went out to see his family, to see his brothers, not his biological brothers, but the Jewish nation. Why did he go out to see them? Vayar b'sivlosom. He saw what they were tolerating. He saw their suffering. He saw their pain. And the Medrash describes how he would try to take the loads off of them that were too heavy, or try to make their lives easier. And he was in such pain overseeing their suffering. That's the first. The Medrash tells us, Shtei Yitzias Yatsa Tzadik. The Torah tells us about 2 times that Moshe left, that Moshe went out to the people. That's one story. And the other story is that he sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. And not just hitting him, but beating him to the point of potential death. And what does he do? He jumps into action. He jumps right into action, and he kills the Egyptian. He risks everything. Here you are. You're in the ivory tower. You're living in Pharaoh's palace. Okay, you feel bad for your brethren. So you know what? Maybe advocate for them. Maybe speak to Pharaoh. Maybe go to the Senate and try to get them to pass a law to be kinder to the slaves, and they shouldn't have to work as hard. Don't go out to the people. Don't risk everything. No, he goes out to the people. He doesn't just go out to see what's going on. He goes to shoulder the burden with them. And then when he sees that one of them is in life-threatening danger, he jumps into action. He gets into action. Like the famous statement, all it takes for evil to flourish is for good men to do nothing. Moshe is the antithesis of that. Moshe gets into action. There's a problem. People are in danger. People are in pain. I'm going to do something about it. But it goes further. Moshe runs away when he finds out that Pharaoh has heard the fact that he killed an Egyptian, and Moshe's life's in danger. He runs far away, runs to Midian. And he goes to a well. And he's standing by the well, and he sees these young women that are going out to draw water from the well. And other shepherds take advantage of them and start beating them up and start pushing them away. And again, Moshe stands up for them. You're a foreigner in the land. You don't know the ways of the land. You don't know who these powerful people are. You're coming from another country where the most powerful person in that country wants to kill you. Lay low. Say, hey, I'm sorry, I wish I could help you. I got to look out for myself. No, that's not Moshe. People need help. They're not in life-threatening danger. They need help. I'm going to help them. And the father of those women realizes the quality of this man who saved his daughters, and he allows Moshe to marry his daughter, to marry Tzipporah. And Moshe becomes a shepherd. The Medrash tells us a story. The Torah, all the Torah tells us is that Moshe was in the desert and he saw a burning bush. But how did he come to be in the desert where the burning bush was? The Medrash tells us that he was watching the sheep and suddenly one sheep ran off. And he runs after the sheep and the sheep keeps on running and running and running until it gets to a brook of water. And the sheep starts drinking the water. And Moshe says, "Oh, I didn't realize you're so thirsty. You must be so tired since you ran so far. Let me carry you back." And he carries the sheep back. So we see Moshe taking a stand for his people, willing to risk everything to save the life of another person. But then we see him going to a foreign land, to women he doesn't know, and standing up for justice for them. And then we see his sensitivity to animals. Not even a human being, not an animal in danger, just being sensitive to the need of an animal. Do you know what the Torah is? When you study Torah, you see there are 613 mitzvot, 613 commandments. And there's minutia, there's details. There's the entire body and study of halacha, of Jewish law, is to understand the application of these commandments. Every detail, every step. The questions that are discussed. There's a discussion as to, the Torah tells us in the Shema, you should give grass, you shall give the food, the animal feed your animals, and then you will eat. The Gemara, the Talmud derives from there that you have to eat only once you fed your animals. Once you fed your animals, then you can eat. That's why the Torah talks about first about feeding your animals and then feeding you. There's a question of, what if your animal is domesticated? What if you have a domesticated animal? Maybe it's different. Maybe the animals in the field rely on you because they don't have any place to go to get food. But a dog or a cat, they can always burrow around and find something in the garbage, find something in the trash to eat. Maybe you don't have to worry about them. There's a question asked to a great rabbi a few centuries ago, Rabbi Yaakov Emden. And he says still, the midat chasidut, the proper way to do things is feed even that animal first. There's a question brought in halacha as well. You're not allowed to eat before you feed your animals. Means your pet dog, you've got to feed them first. What about if you want to have a cup of coffee? What if drinking? Is drinking the same as eating or not? And there's a distinction drawn based on a verse in Bereshis, in Genesis. We see a distinction between eating and drinking. What's my point? My point is this is minutia. These are details. Are you allowed to have coffee before you serve or a cup of water before you serve the animal or not? You know what that is? It's sensitivities. Torah is all about sensitivities and giving us the proper expression of that. The way one great rabbi once said, he said the entirety of Torah, of commandments, of halacha, of Jewish law, is developing godlike attitudes and sensitivities. That's what we're trying to do. And that's what you're doing when you study Torah. So first of all, Moshe is the leader of the Jews because of this incredible sensitivities and the sense of this moral compass where he stands up for what's right. He stands up for people in need. He's willing to risk everything. But it's only if it's in line with Torah. There's no such thing as a Jewish leader who's not great in Torah. We don't have two different things. We don't have Torah scholars and leaders. No. The leaders are great in Torah. They are knowledgeable in Torah. They live Torah. I had the privilege of studying in a great yeshiva, the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim, for 3.5 years. And the yeshiva is a very interesting yeshiva. It's not a yeshiva where you have different classes where rabbis are appointed to give a class. I mean, it's changed a little bit now, but in my day, if you were good, the students appointed you to teach them. But who were these people that were appointed? They weren't just brilliant scholars. They weren't just great philosophers or great at analytical skills. They were people of great character, of great personal integrity. I never heard any of the rabbis speak inappropriately. I never saw them do something wrong. I never saw them say an off-color joke. Tremendous personal integrity because there's Torah and there's leadership together. You can't be a Jewish leader without a connection to Torah. But what is Torah? Torah is all about those sensitivities, which Moshe lives. So, of course, Moshe is the one who brings Torah to the world because Moshe lives Torah. In a certain level, he is Torah, and that's why he's the leader of the Jewish nation. So for us, what we have to realize is we're leaders. Whether we're leaders at work, whether we're leaders in our homes, whether we're leaders amongst our peers and our friends, we have to realize the only way we can truly properly lead is by connecting to Torah. And then we have to live our Torah. We have to study and we have to live. We have to live these values and concepts. That is a Jewish leader. The Jewish leader sees something, he jumps into action with the sensitivities, with the parameters, with the guidelines of Torah. When we have that, when we have the knowledge, and we have the bringing into action, we have the sensitivities and the parameters, then we're a Jewish leader. May we merit to be great Jewish leaders, each of us in our own lives. Don't shy away from it. Moshe didn't shy away. It seems, it's a whole separate discussion, but it seems that he shied away. But he studied more carefully. You see, that wasn't really what was going on. He knew his greatness. Moshe was the most humble of all men. The Torah testifies. He was the most humble of all men, but yet he knew how to lead. He knew that when he was given the opportunity, he had to run with it. Because humility is not denying your qualities. Humility is realizing God gave me qualities and strengths and I've got to run with it. But I have to run with it within the parameters of Torah. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Use your Shabbos to study Torah. Use your Shabbos to live these values of Torah. Be a selfless, godlike person who's knowledgeable in Torah. Have a wonderful Shabbos.